Welcome to the Anacortes Planning Commission meeting of May 14th. Ms. Gleichman, would you please take roll?
Commissioner Mills.
Here.
Commissioner McCombs.
Here.
Commissioner Ryan. Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner Stoneman.
Here.
Commissioner Dretsky. Commissioner Courier.
Here.
Okay. Next is Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please join me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We did not get a motion for absences. No. If you want to.
I think. Commissioner, I'd like to move that Mr. Ryan and Mr. Dretsky be given excused absences as I stumble over my motion. It's hard.
Okay. There's been a motion to excuse the two absences. Is there a second?
I second.
Moved and seconded to excuse Mr. Dretsky and Mr. Ryan's absence. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Now, we are on to minutes. And I did not print out a revised, but we have minutes for the November 13th, 2024 meeting. And is there a motion or changes that need to happen?
I said, you're usually pretty good about that. I was looking down at you.
Chairman Martin,
Yes.
I move to approve the minutes from the meeting of November 13, 2024 as presented.
I second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of November 13th, 2024. Any other comments? Otherwise, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes have passed. Thank you very much. Okay. Item number 4 is public comments. This is the time when anybody in the audience, either online or in person, would be welcome to come up and speak about anything not on the agenda. We will give you 3 minutes. And seeing no one, is there anybody online that would like to speak?
There's no hands raised.
Okay. Then number 5 is public hearings. We have no public hearing tonight. So number 6 is other business. A 2025 comprehensive plan update, draft amendments to the economic development element, goals and policy introduction. And we have Mr. Coleman here.
Good evening, Planning Commission. My name is John Coleman. I'm the Director of the Planning Community and Economic Development Department. Tonight we're going to be talking about the economic development element, goals, and policies. And with us today is Andrew Oliver, who helped draft the recommended changes. Andrew is with Leland Consulting Group. They're a sub of Makers that's working on you might remember Andrew, he did our land capacity analysis and a lot of data-driven information, and as well is working on the economic development element and some of the data therein. And as part of that, he did an update of, or recommended amendments to the goals and policies. And I'll let him talk here in a moment, but I wanted to point out, you probably recall back in November or December, the city put out an economic development survey throughout the city. It was open for about a month and had an online survey. I think many of you have taken it. And the results of that were taken by Western Washington University, who's the consultant we were working with on that project, It's their Center for CERB. I forget what it stands for. I apologize. But they're putting all the data together, the results of that survey, as well as some recommendations for an economic development strategic plan. And we've been reviewing that information, and while reviewing it, we used some of the preliminary data for the update that Andrew's going to present, and also looked at it and we noticed that we feel strongly that we've got a really good arts and culture community and a creative economy in Anacortes, and between the draft that we published of these goals and policies last week, we were like, well, maybe we were kind of missing the mark on that a little. So we did publish earlier today, some minor updates to support our creative economy goals and policies in here. So we're working from a little bit fresher than what you've probably seen, but don't worry, we're going to walk you through it, and there's not really that much changes or anything all that earth-shattering. But I just wanted to point that out. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew to present the goals and policy updates.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everyone, commissioners, for having me back. Nice to be with you again. Regret that I'm not there in person with you tonight, but thanks for accommodating virtual meeting. So, Andrew Oliver with Leland Consulting Group, as was mentioned, I was working on the land capacity analysis, and I'm going to share the matrix, which was provided to you. This is the updated version, so I'll point out where those arts and culture goals have been updated as well. So, as Director Coleman mentioned, there's a few data sources that we used in updating these goals and policies. First was the draft information from Western, especially the community survey, and there was a lot of good information in there. And then we also updated the economic development background chapter, which had some basic data on job sectors, tax revenue, and other things that will come before you at some point. And then we did a little bit of general consolidating to try to make these goals and policies more actionable and reorganized in one major way, which I'll point out first, and then we can go through in order. But previously there were 8 goals with each with policies, and goal number 5 was called Other Growth Economic Sectors. And it kind of had a grab bag of various policies that related to different sectors. Only 4 policies were nested into that goal. So in an attempt to prevent duplication and make things more organized, we proposed to take that goal out and reorganize and move these various policies to other places. And I'll point out where they end up. So we're not really taking any of this out, but just trying to consolidate things in a couple other areas. Okay, so the first goal, balanced economy, foster a balanced, diversified, and sustainable local economy that contributes to Anacortes' high quality of life. So here we have a variety of measures by which to do that. Natural amenities, a diversity of businesses, a stable tax base, et cetera. These are all proposed to retain. Here we've sort of tried to increase some specificity around business retention, especially small and locally owned businesses, such as talking about incubator spaces, technical assistance. Here in yellow is this proposed new arts policy. So we call that the Creative District, partnering with the Creative District to foster the growth of the creative economy and supporting the Arts Festival and other events. So that's sort of the general policy that's specifically about the creative economy and arts scene. And then we've added it in a few other places, including the next policy here, which talks about workforce housing affordability. We basically changed this language to align more closely with new housing element language and new housing requirements, and added creative economy here because there was a big emphasis, it seemed, when reviewing the creative district objectives in providing housing that could be affordable to employees in the creative economy and arts. Yes,
Sorry, Mr. Oliver.
that's okay.
I'm an old lady, and I cannot read this on
Oh,
the
I'm sorry.
screen at all. I don't know if anybody.
Yes, thank you.
I am
Thank you for
looking
bringing
and
that up.
looking, I can't read it.
I have a huge monitor here, so I couldn't tell how large it was. Is that better?
That is better. Now, if you just move it up so we can actually read what it says.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to figure out how to, we probably don't, well, I do want to leave the numbers on, so let's do it like that. Okay.
Okay, so you crossed off ED 1.9.
Well, this actually, I should take the strike through out. The strike through was residual.
Okay.
Forgot. But we have basically rewritten this because it was very general before about a diverse population, including artists and multi-generational community. Some of this was less tied to economic development, so we wanted to focus it in here now on the arts creative district specifically.
So we can delete the original language, attract a diverse population, et cetera, and we're replacing it with collaborate with Anacortes Creative District to foster growth of Anacortes creative economy through recruitment and support of creative and artistic businesses, supporting the Anacortes Arts Festival and additional arts and cultural events, and marketing Anacortes as a destination for art and culture, which is a lot more specific than what the old policy read.
I guess with that, I'm just curious, the Anacortes Creative District, since it is capitalized, is that a actual organization, or does that just mean?
Yes.
Or is that generic?
It is. So the Meredith McLemoyle, who runs the Anacortes Arts Festival, executive director, I forget her specific title, she worked with many local businesses and volunteers to go through a process in the state to get Anacortes designated as an official creative district. And that is a state designation. There's only, I think there's about 10 or 11 in the state right now, so we're in good company. And the whole point is to create this creative district that encourages arts and creativity in the community. And so we want to support that goal as an economic development driver.
Okay, no, that's great, thanks. And sorry, I jumped in.
And
without
leads to
actually
additional
asking
tourism
for-
too. So, I mean, it's like a multifaceted economic development tool.
Thanks.
Chairman Martin.
Mr. Mills?
District, does it have geographic boundaries?
It does, and if you go to the Anacortes Creative District webpage, I believe it's .com, but if you just Google Anacortes Creative District, it'll take you to their webpage, and it does show the geographic boundaries. It is roughly the same as our Central Business District zoning district, but a little bit different. And it was drawn to capture the kind of arts and manufacturing and parks area. So it goes out to Cosland and it goes out to the depot, and it stretches down to I think Cortland Rope area. For some, when you look at the criteria of a creative district, they met that. So that's, and then I think down to about 12th is the southern extent. So.
Thanks for that explanation, and also for making the font bigger.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
While we're stopped, I wanted to let you go through your presentation, but I do have a question. If you just back up one,
Sure.
may as well just ask it now.
Yeah. Feel free to interrupt, of course. At any time.
Okay. providing incubator space for micro enterprise. Can you tell me what that actually means?
I can do that. So
Okay.
we are a community development block grant city, so we receive community development block grant funds. We just found out today it's going to be $108,000 and change for this current cycle. And with that money, we typically support community services types things like Anacortes Housing Authority, giving them assistance with projects. It's mostly projects that is funded. But there's also this other way you can use your community development block grants funds, and that's for creating jobs. And specifically in the community development block grant criteria, you're allowed to use money for micro enterprises. And those are small startup companies that maybe 1 or 2 people that have like a very small shop. A good example of those are the Little Chicago small structures. Those are very small. They were intended to be an incubator space for small businesses, and those are referred to as micro enterprises. Community development block grant money can go towards that, and so it's really helpful that we have that referenced in our comprehensive plan, because now we can really say, when we're filling out the quite complex community development block grant reporting criteria, we can show support in our comprehensive plan for that. We haven't done anything like that in the past, but this gives us the ability, and we'll probably be looking at supporting some micro enterprises in the not too distant future, or at least entertaining the idea.
Great, thank you. Okay, Mr. Oliver, go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. So moving on to some other changed policies here. This refers to the strategic plan. So the old policy said to develop a strategic plan. As we've heard, the strategic plan has been drafted and is underway, will be finalized relatively soon. So this just represents an intent to implement the findings and recommendations of that plan. Some of these, where it says consolidate, are places where we took the intent of the policy and combined it with other similar policies. Again, try to make things more concise. So broadband here we'll see farther down. Okay, at the end of goal 1 here, we proposed a 3 new policies. One is just a sort of general coordination policy, which came from somewhere else, from goal 5, to coordinate with regional economic development organizations. Here we have a policy to attract knowledge-based enterprises. This came also from number 5, where there was just a sort of grab bag of things, and also from goal 5, supporting expansion of local medical care facilities as sources of jobs and income. So these 3 aren't all new. They came up from that other policy goal section that we had proposed to eliminate. They seem to fit under goal 1, which is again about a balanced economy, diverse economy. Okay, so now we have goal 2. This is retail and commercial. Slightly changed the language here. Retain and grow commercial businesses which serve the community's needs for goods and services. So under the retail and commercial category, we've here added another reference to the economic strategic plan, and then combined these 4 policies, which were about household spending, new businesses that serve local residents, different types of new businesses, businesses that provide gathering places. So these kind of all made their way into a more concise policy here. So it mentions the economic strategic plan, incentives, marketing, other work in order to promote the formation and support of local businesses that serve the needs of residents and visitors, then listing some types: small, specialty retailers, mercantile, and community spaces, in order to retain money within the community. I don't know why there's a quote here. Sorry about that. So this sort of policy is trying to bring these things together and capture the ideas in these somewhat short policies that were here before. We're proposing to remove this. Consider implementing limits on non-retail uses in the core central business district areas after careful review of successful implementations elsewhere. I have the write-up on the rationale here. The policy was not pursued in the 2019 development regulation updates. There are a variety of non-retail uses that are currently permitted in the CBD zone, and it seems that those are appropriate uses to have there. So we propose to take that older policy out. The rest of these policies here under retail and commercial, goal 2, are pretty much remaining.
Why don't we do this? Let's go through each goal and then see if there are questions.
Yeah.
Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. Yeah, and before we go to goal 3, there's just one more thing here in goal 2, which is a bit of change of the parking policy to more closely align with the climate element. So this suggestion came from the makers team in their work on the climate goals and policies, so that the economic development and climate goals and policies would be working together. So in addition to vehicle parking, there's now a mention of bicycle parking and electric vehicle charging infrastructure to ensure adequate, convenient, and safe parking in commercial areas. So yeah, that's goal 2. Discussion or questions, I can go back up or however you want to address this.
Commissioners, any questions, comments? Mr. McCombs?
So I noticed there's a few spots where the goal is to consider something. So like if you look specifically policy 2.8, and I just don't think considering something is really a goal or a policy. So I think we want to have better language there that we are going to do something as a goal or a policy rather than just consider thinking about it. Because we're thinking about it right now. So there's several. Go ahead.
Use explore or encourage in some of these other ones. I think we did change that on a few, and not this one.
Okay. Yeah, I just think that the wording there, we can probably be a little more proactive than that.
Okay. Would you mind going back to 2.5, please? This is an original one. Promote the development of uses such as high-density residential and overnight accommodations that maintain or increase shopper density within the central business district. How does that square with our new short-term rental policy? It seems like it's in opposition.
No, well, I mean, we want to encourage hotels and in the central business district, and that's what overnight accommodations was envisioned as when this was originally written. I'm not sure if the short-term rentals were thought of there, but we definitely want to encourage hotels in the central business district.
We could, I mean, if it feels like there would be a potential conflict, I mean, we could consider changing this to just say hotels explicitly.
Well, I mean, that would exclude, motels technically, and it might exclude bed and breakfasts and anything else. So
Yeah.
we don't see any concerns about this being inconsistent with our development regulations.
Okay. Even though we're encouraging hotels and motels and bed and breakfasts, but we are discouraging Airbnbs.
We're not allowing Airbnbs.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're allowing them if they're already licensed and.
Yeah, and there are none
Yeah.
in the central business district.
I would also suggest that this does say the development of uses, so I think it's also could be read to sort of, be encouraging actual new hotels, or maybe the change of use of a building to a hotel, or the building of a new hotel rather than renting of an existing building. I think that's kind of could be, in the use of the word development could be a consideration too.
All right, well, I'm just bringing it up.
Yeah.
The following one that is crossed out, encourage uses that provide gathering and meeting places. I'm thinking about the planned event center, and now we're taking that, or proposing to take that out of that policy.
It wasn't taken out. We've just moved it up here into this discussion here in the provision of community spaces. There's also later on policy that talks about event center specifically.
Okay. Okay. That might be my questions in this section. You're good?
Okay. All right. Goal 3 is tourism. Maintain and enhance year-round opportunities for sustainable tourism in keeping with the community's vision. So a lot of this remains the same. One thing that we did this week is to add arts associations into here, along with business organizations and tourism associations. And so we've added arts associations in here, to call that out specifically, following what we were discussing earlier. Here's something that's a little more proactive. So consider, or think about, right? Consider creation and funding of a city culture and tourism office rather than just consider creation. It could be explore. I don't know if we want to potentially make the same note here about something slightly more proactive than consider.
Chairman Martin,
Yes, Mr. McCombs.
just a question. Is there any reason we can't be more direct in our language and just say, as a city, we should create and fund a city culture and tourism office?
No, it's definitely appropriate to put that in. I think it generally just depends on how much sort of momentum or intent there is to do it in this planning period, more or less.
The language is pretty wishy-washy, right? Like, let's do it or let's not. So is there any reason we can't just move out on this?
So right now we don't have, we don't have money or plans to create a city culture and tourism office to manage marketing and tourism promotion. We currently use the Chamber of Commerce and use Lodging Tax Advisory Committee money to fund their efforts as our marketing arm. So by having it as wishy-washy language, it gives us the opportunity to change gears. It indicates that, yes, this is important to us. But, as far as, providing funding and actually creating that office and finding funding for an office, if we write it in here, we're telling ourselves we have to do it. So I don't know that we're going to be able to pull that off right now. So I know, but it gives us options, and it indicates that we support the concept, which we definitely do.
Mr. Mills, I can tell from how you just look at me.
I share Commissioner McCombs' concern about wishy-washy wording, but I also am concerned about the flip side of it, of being very specific. And it goes back to my speech of everything's important, and we have hundreds of policies that we're considering, but we have no place where we have a mechanism for prioritizing all these things. So if we err on the side of everything being very broad, then that allows the opportunity down the road for anybody to say, well, we want to do this because it's a policy in our comp plan, but without a mechanism to prioritize, it's just a crapshoot, whatever somebody wants to grab out of the comp plan and pursue. So I don't like the wishy-washiness, but without a prioritization scheme, to be specific, we would need to go through each and every one and determine now whether or not policy ED6 is more important than ED43. So I understand what staff is doing in terms of broad language, but I still, in a bigger picture, would like us to recognize that we need to have a scheme. If we don't prioritize within the plan itself, at least have a process for prioritizing as we move forward with implementing plans.
And it could be that that's the role of the council. Just saying. Okay.
So do we wish to keep this as it is for now? I mean, I think there are things like encourage or explore, which maybe imply something a little notch up from consider, but without sort of committing, as Director Coleman was saying.
I think it sounds like leave
Or
the
it's
wording. Yeah.
It's a broader question, really, isn't it? Okay. So moving on with the more policies under tourism here. Gateway signage. This was just clarification that allows further exploration of what gateway locations would be. Here's another one where we did sort of change encourage to coordinate. So coordinate marketing and programming of activities and facilities that attract visitors throughout the year and increase the length of potential visitor experience. So sort of specifying not just, increasing the sort of tourism season, but also the length of stays through marketing and activities. This one is also trying to bring a little more specificity in here. Encourage development of expanded lodging options to support overnight stays by tourists and other visitors through land use and marketing. So, the land use side of it, I think, was in response to some conversations or something that came out of that stakeholder engagement about where hotels might be allowed, for example. Although now that we're talking about this, I wonder if this may run up against that short-term rental policy too. So I don't know if there's thoughts on that.
Yep. Short-term rentals, keep in mind the policy. There it is again.
Yeah.
Chairman Martin.
Yes.
I guess I have a comment about tourism. And I think there's some educational stuff later that we'll get to. One of the things, I guess, two comments on tourism. One, I don't think that there is a marquee, a unique attraction in Anacortes. So Anacortes has a lot of great character. It has some good restaurants, good hiking trails. There's natural things to see and do, but there is nothing that I can think of where I'm like, this is the one place you can go. You got to go and see this thing in Anacortes. And so I like the language in 3.10 talking about expanding the amount and variety of attractions. Mm-hmm. But I think if we want to make Anacortes a tourist destination, I think the Arts is a great way to, that's one lever to pull. But I also think we need to look as a city in creating something that makes it a destination. And I don't think it is right now.
Do the other commissioners agree with that? Because I disagree. When I have visitors coming, the very first thing I do is I take them to Washington Park and say, you have to see this. You have to see this a magnificent place. And the second thing I do is I take them up to the top of Cap Santee. Always. I think those are destination places that do set us apart.
I don't think those things have the draw to get people they're great to see when you're in Anacortes.
Yeah.
But I don't think people drive from Seattle to come up and walk around Washington Park. So
Well, I have people that drive from farther away than that.
I think as a policy, talking about attractions, I think there could be some things that Anacortes could do to draw more visitors and make it more of a tourist destination.
Okay, heads are nodding. We're not disagreeing about that.
Do we want to then explore potentially strengthening some element of either, I would say, 9 or 10 here? I mean, here we have civic community gathering place, destination, venue of some sort. It could be for any of these things, conference center. Here we have a variety of attractions or amount of attractions. I could see we could put in a mention of like a key attraction or or something, or maybe that would be here in sort of this listing of types of destination attraction. I don't know. You could think about that.
I
But would
mean,
you like us to try to strengthen one or the other of these in response to this conversation?
I don't know. I thought it looks to me like 3.10 might just be saying what you are saying. Where you think was that where you think it needed to be beefed up, or because I mean that's saying let's do more stuff like a fishing
I
pier
like,
or
yeah, I like the
whatever.
language in 3.10.
Yeah.
I think we could strengthen it and try to create more of a, I think, like the great example I would give is the Monterey Bay Aquarium, if you guys have ever been there. I mean, people travel to the West Coast to go see that. And I'm not saying we need to create an aquarium in Anacortes, but there we could probably do something that would create that sort of unique destination that would draw people into Anacortes year-round.
Such as a fishing pier, or
I'm not sure fishing pier
or
would
a
do
sawmill
that.
museum, or another attraction.
Well, even, you look at our museum, like we have an Anacortes museum, but I don't know that that's on the top 10 places to visit when you're in Anacortes, right? So I think there's things like that that we could improve. And I think that would be a good goal in our comprehensive plan.
So would the planning commission entertain something like Andrew mentioned in 3.10, saying including a key or focal tourist attraction that would encourage people to come to Anacortes on its own merits, something to that effect?
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. I like that idea of a key attraction.
We have all head nods.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Well,
something-
Mr. Mills?
something that somebody in Spokane would know about and
Know about,
come
yeah.
over for the weekend. Chairman Martin's list of things that you do with people who come to visit exactly mirrors my list. Maybe add whale watching.
Well,
And,
but there's-
and travel to the top of Mount Erie. That's another one that I do.
But that doesn't necessarily get them here. So
True.
whale watching does get people to town.
That's true.
People do, that would be one thing that the planning commission's discussed, that I think people travel here to specifically to do that. And then they discover the other beauties.
And it's much more accessible from here than taking a trip to the San Juans and dealing with the complexity of that.
Can't hear you.
I'd say it's much more accessible if you did whale watching from here versus having to take extra ferries and go to the San Juans. And yeah, I like that idea.
Or if we could get back the ferry to Vancouver, or Vancouver Island, that also would make this more of a destination. Okay,
Okay.
Maybe we throw something about now that you mention it, I think that wouldn't be a bad thing to
Yeah.
maybe, continue to encourage the state to reestablish the international ferry.
Yeah.
yes.
I didn't know if there was ferry language in the transportation element, but I think it definitely could belong in here under tourism. If so, we should also cross-reference it with the transportation element.
Okay, good conversation. Number 4.
All right. Oh, sorry. One last addition to goal 3. Again, in conjunction with Maker's team on the climate element. So this just sort of talks about enhancing accessibility to downtown businesses through pedestrian connections to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. So this is mirroring one of the climate goals here. Okay, goal 4, manufacturing and industrial, strengthen the marine trades economy and encourage other manufacturing and industrial opportunities. We have very few changes here, leaving in most of the existing policies, marine traditions, talking about location of manufacturing, all the specific marine industrial uses that are discussed, adequate sites for these uses. Here we have maker spaces, incubator facilities again. And then here we've simply added coordination with Skagit County, since the March Point refineries are in the UGA and not in the city limits. So we wanted to specify that. Anything on manufacturing and industrial?
I'd say no. Oh, one more, yes?
Perhaps we're going to get to it later, but I would like at some point tonight to talk about who's responsible for what relative to March's Point when it comes to county versus the city, and making sure that we have coverage. The words here that are added, coordinate with Skagit County, seems to start down that direction, but before we close tonight, at some point, I'd like to understand who's responsible for what between the county and the city, and making sure that we're covered.
So the county, Birch's Point is in the urban growth area, but it is under county jurisdiction. So so anybody developing a project on March's Point would go to the county for permits. In the zoning for that area, the county zoning, it states that if you go to their zoning code, it states that they are to follow the development regulations of the city. Is that the exact language, to follow the development regulations? Basically, they need to follow our rules, not our zoning code per se, but like our development standards. So the county will then contact us and say, hey, does this project look okay? But they kind of run it by us, and they reference our codes to make sure that it meets our development regulations. But we don't specifically have jurisdiction there, so it's a little odd.
And Mr. Mills, great minds think alike. I wondered about that based on community comments, and did a little research. So when we get to the climate section, we'll talk about that, and also battery storage.
Yeah, my concerns were more not in terms of implementation and building and what gets physically done, but what gets, making sure we're covered in the plan between us and the county, that March's Point is as thoroughly, if not more thoroughly covered than anything else inside the city limits.
Okay, Mr. Oliver.
Okay.
So we've gone through 4.
Yep. So we're on 5, which we've removed, as I discussed. So just to recap, industry clusters and knowledge-based enterprises were moved to goal 1. We've removed this discussion of higher education because it was already covered in 6, as we'll see in a moment. And local medical care facilities from 5 was moved to goal 1. So that brings us to goal 6. Provide education and training, to collaborate with educational institutions to meet employer and workforce needs. There's a bit of reorganization here. This sort of catch-all, encouraging opportunities to train the workforce, and we added that into here with the more specific policy 6.2, collaborating with specific educational facilities, which are listed here. Northwest Center of Excellence for Marine Manufacturing, Shannon Point Marine Center, Rosario Beach Laboratory, Skagit Valley College, etc., to provide education and training for a broad range of careers, interests, technologies, and to provide family wage jobs, which we added to sort of get into that workforce housing affordability question as well. And then another addition from makers here as a sub-bullet to connect with some climate policies, which you'll probably see later. Promote awareness, education, and training for green job opportunities, particularly for lower income, underemployed, and or frontline communities. Other than that, proposing to leave these other 2 policies alone about educational opportunities and existing educational institutions.
Mr.
Anything on
McCombs.
education?
Hang on, Mr. McCombs.
So I think this is a great opportunity. I like the education stuff. We talk about tourism in section 3, right?
Yeah.
But in the education, we don't do anything specifically about tourism, but I think this is something we could call out specifically for culinary and hospitality fields. And I know Skagit Valley they have curriculum for culinary and hospitality. I wonder if there's something we could do to partner with them and improve options if we're trying to improve tourism, have world-class restaurants and hotels.
We have called out entrepreneurship, innovation, and mentoring here in 6.3. So, I think to that list, we could put something connected to tourism, culinary, hospitality, or here. I mean, here it just says a broad range of careers, interests, technologies. So I could live in either place.
Or even under ED 6.4, encourage expansion of existing educational institutes to include culinary and what was the,
Hospitality was,
Yeah, either one. And in fact, I suppose we could combine 3 and 4 if we wanted to, but they're somewhat different, I guess. So this is about existing institutions. So I guess it's more, if it were in 3.6.4, it would be talking about what you were saying, Skagit Valley College existing programs, as opposed to sort of new opportunities or exploring new opportunities in those fields. Or we could put it in both.
yeah, I just think it's worth calling out
Yeah.
those fields in that, if we're trying to establish or continue to establish Anacortes as a destination. And then can I throw out one more comment? We talk about, I didn't wait for an answer there. We talk about incubator space for micro enterprise. Generally, are those, if you're talking about incubators and startups, aren't those a lot of the time collaborative with universities and colleges?
not necessarily, not in the format that CDBG money would be. We would be probably working with a local nonprofit such as the Creative District to, help funnel people to a program and give them technical assistance as they expand a small opportunity. Oftentimes it might be, somebody who's, starting a baking company in their kitchen and they expand. That's one thing that, we often hear a need for is a small commercial kitchen or a larger commercial kitchen that people can rent time at, and maybe not, they don't lease it full time as their own because they're a small enterprise, but someplace that has a commercial kitchen can we may talk about that here, but if we don't, we could throw that in to encourage a commercial kitchen for leasing out to smaller enterprises. So no, the micro enterprise is not necessarily associated with a college, but doesn't mean that they can't be.
Okay. Yeah, the research I did, it sounded like most of the big places that do the, what was the word was, it's in here, incubators. And a lot of times those are affiliated with universities. So I thought maybe when we're talking about education, if we were able to do some sort of collaboration with the local university to create some sort of, or encourage incubation and startups and those types of things. That might be a good goal.
And that could also be people with disabilities. Sometimes that works through the colleges, and they have some kind of a job set up that they can encourage and get it going. Yeah.
Just to add to that too, I know that the Northwest Technical or Career and Technical Academy, which we have one branch here, they have a commercial kitchen and program out of Mount Vernon. I mean, adding something like that here might be kind of accomplish some of those goals too.
Thoughts?
Maybe here where we have education and training called out, there could be some mention of like physical space somehow, think about it. Guys, make a note to remember that. Can't spell under pressure. Okay. All right. So there's two more quick ones. Enhance regulatory predictability, goal 7. Streamline regulations and permitting. So this is mostly proposed to stay the same. Efficient, clear, and economic permitting process. It said craft land use and development regulations. We changed that to maintain land use and development regulations because there was this major code update in 2019, which was intended to increase predictability and flexibility. Monitoring economic conditions, encouraging redevelopment of underutilized buildings, providing incentives, and public-private partnerships. So those are all pretty much the same. And finally, goal 8 here with 3 policies: ongoing commitment, continue to collaborate with public and private partners to pursue local and regional economic development. So 8.1 is a general, working with every type of group, is mentioned here: other jurisdictions, educational institutions, environmental groups, agencies, economic development organizations, etc. 8.2 is about marketing. So this is the marketing specific policy that we're marketing, was mentioned in tourism. But here we have marketing more about development and job retention and creation. So inventorying and describing areas available for redevelopment, cooperating with, other agencies, jurisdictions, etc. Considering establishment of a community and business development office. And then 2 more from the climate element, raising awareness of local business efforts to reduce emissions and promoting how the use of local businesses can help Anacortes meet greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. And then finally, a tracking policy, develop meaningful goals and strategies that promote community desired economic development and monitor progress towards meeting those goals. So that's sort of on the implementation side of things. And that's the last one.
Chairman Martin?
Yes, Mr. Mills?
We have invested millions and millions of dollars in our fiber optic network. Do we anywhere in here have in our objectives or policies to market, use that as a tool to attract business? It seems like it's a common denominator to 8 of the 9 objectives.
Mm-hmm.
This area might be a good place to insert how we leverage that to attract everything, basically.
Yeah.
Andrew,
just-
is access
I remember
fiber
it.
in there? I mean, you could do a word search for access and fiber or fiber.
Yeah.
And
Or internet,
I feel like
1.8. I feel like it's in here somewhere. Okay, it was in there. We just lumped it in public facilities and services. But yeah, I think the connection with marketing does make sense.
Oh, 1.4.
Didn't they consolidate with one?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So Andrew, if you want to just think about that and maybe intersperse it in, and what we'll do from here is Andrew's going to take the comments that you saw him make notes on and make some changes. We'll have a fresh draft for you without the yellow. It'll just be a clean draft for us to have a public hearing on at our next Planning Commission meeting.
Great. Just
So
a quick,
great suggestions. Thank you. It's been a really good conversation.
Really good discussion.
real quick question. Where can we find the community's vision? It's ED3.
The community vision is its own section of the comp plan, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
It's kind of the intro.
Okay. Is that something that is going to be revised also?
That's on the maker's side of things, but I believe so. Yes, I think it's in the first chapter. But yeah, we can check with makers. But I mean, it's a good point. Since this does presuppose that the community's vision involves tourism. So I'll put a note to check with Scott and Marcus on where
I
they're
think
at.
Ms. Gray chose an answer.
Yeah. I'm happy to read the vision statement if the commission would like that.
Sure.
Okay, so the current vision statement for the comprehensive plan is Anacortes is a unique, creative, vibrant, and caring maritime community that supports cultural and economic diversity and vitality, balances sustainable growth with respect for our history, and protects our natural environment and public lands for future generations. So there's the vision statement, and then there are some categories of values statements which kind of expand on those thoughts in the
Great.
comp plan. So I'm happy to send you a link to that, or it's also on page 1-9 of the 2016 comp plan.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Oliver.
Yeah. Thank you all. Nice to be with you again. And yeah, we'll get these incorporated and provide a new draft to you pretty soon. And thanks for the great discussion.
Thanks. Okay, moving on. We are on item 6B, 2025 Comprehensive Plan Update Draft Amendment to the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Element Goals and Policies. And Mr. Coleman, I think you're going to...
All right, so largely through this comp plan process, we've been leveraging our consultants to present to you, but there's a few of the elements that we're attempting to do entirely on our own in-house. And so one of those is our Parks and Recreation element. And to talk about that and the goals and policies section of that, we have John Lunsford and Bob Folks here, sorry, to talk about that. And so I'm going to bring them on up. Oh, I guess Libby wants to say something.
No, it's all right. I'll just get this pulled up unless you have it already, John. Here, you do it. You probably don't need me.
And while she's pulling that up, if it's okay with the commissioners, let's try the same plan. We'll go for one goal, go through it, and then talk about it.
I thought I had it.
Hi, Commission members, ladies and gentlemen. So myself and Mr. Vokes are here. If you have questions, please stop us at any time and we'll do our best to answer them. All right. So if it's your pleasure, we'll just do like the other folks did. I probably won't read everything for you. I will just point out some of the new policies, some of the changes. If you have questions, just interact and we'll have a great time together tonight revising this. Okay, PR1 goal. You can see we added, so what the work has been done by our staff and then working with planning staff, Ms. Grage and others to help you get to where we are today. So I want to acknowledge that work. And, we have taken this out of our previous plans and tried to put it together so it was a little more accessible and more goal-oriented to action items. So here we go. This PR 1.1 is one that we've updated and broadened specifically, as you can see in the blue text on the screen. It's not on the screen. Thank you, Sherry. Now it's on the screen. There we go.
Can we make it bigger?
You know, I don't have that skill. Sherry has that skill.
Perfect.
There we go. Sherry's talking me through it, yeah. No, that's good. I appreciate it. I need all the help I can get. Is that helpful?
That is
Okay.
very helpful to me.
Well, then that's helpful to us.
Yeah.
All right, so PR 1.1, you can see we've broadened that a bit to focus on specific areas. We added a new policy combining some of our old ones that are below 1.5. Talk about public spaces, gathering spaces, what that could be. We had the Picket Pocket Park by Penguin Coffee. We have the Postal Pocket Park by the post office. Places like that where folks can gather in a town square. Causland Park is often viewed by many, or the Depot Plaza. There's our town square, the downtown places you can gather. The library has that as well. But this is kind of looking at to enlarge that and find new spaces where we can reimagine that for the public. That kind of, we learned a lesson during the COVID pandemic. People were looking for places to do that. We've done that at the senior center as well with a new pavilion there. Supporting the arts and culture, see that policy there. It's kind of acknowledgement of the Arts Commission, which you'll see later on, and our role in public art. Collaborations we do with other departments and other organizations. PR 18, you can see that it's expanded quite a bit to be a little more detailed. We changed 1.0 on the Community Recreation Center to realize that we, as many of you may know, we're trying to broaden that option to make a more general approach. And there we are. That's 1.1 through 1.10. Any questions or comments? You don't have to make any, but you're welcome to.
Oh, we usually make comments.
Great. PR2.
Hang on. I have a couple of questions, I think.
Great.
And this is truly a question on PR 1.1. It talks about our underserved locations and communities. Do we know where they are?
Yeah, so when we've looked at that in the past along, our Avenue corridor, Q Avenue corridor, south of 22nd, was an area we didn't really have good access for people to have parks. So in that we looked at broadening the park at 28th Street, the playground, the community garden. Those came on by looking at that area more intensely. We saw opportunities for the Ben Root Skate Park expansion with the skate park and pump track. So those neighbors could get to those places quite easily and was accessible via the Thompson Trail for others. So we looked at that kind of corridor as an example of a place to do it. Storwick Park is there, but Commercial Avenue with no crossing kind of prevented a lot of people and kids who lived in those apartments in those neighborhoods from getting there. So that's why we looked at that. You could look at, the West End Park is another example of a place where people could walk to. Where's an unserved corridor that folks can't get to walk from their homes, There's a lot of regional parks. Anacortes isn't that big. You can drive to places, but a place just to go play quickly or to get out of your house for young families. That's some of the things that we look at for that.
Okay.
Things along the waterfront. Access on the forest lands trailheads where we're not serving well. Does that help, Ms. Martin?
Yep,
Okay.
that helps.
Thank you.
Then on the new policy after PR 1.5, I made myself a question about the event center. Not sure what my question was. It appears that this is addressing an event center. So it's probably fine. Mr. McCombs?
Yes. I guess I look at the mission of Parks and Rec, and you talk about facilities. Most of the things that we have talked about, though, are outdoor recreation, right?
That's one of the things we do.
Okay. I know the pool is its own entity. Is that right?
It is an independent taxing district. That is correct, separate from the city.
Okay. How do we establish a better solution for the community in terms of like a recreational center for like a sports center that would include a pool?
Include a swimming pool in it?
Yes.
Well, so we tried to do that years ago. We tried to collaborate with the Fidalgo Pool District on could we combine a center for youth and the pool and the senior center and have a nexus of activity there. It was that's a small area. for that kind of relative big undertaking. And so we moved away from that. And they are still looking, of course, to improve their pool. We still have the senior center next door, but we've taken our idea for the community recreation center down to land next to the skate park. So that's the current focus of that. That's quite a large area there. We have pledges of $10 million and the land. We need to raise another $2 to $5 million this year in pledges, with the ultimate goal of reaching $25 million for a building. So that is something that former Mayor Gear is leading the charge on and working on. And she'd be glad to come speak to you if you'd like it.
Okay, is that addressed in this policy document anywhere?
Not in that specificity, no.
Okay.
But it is addressed in 1.10, where we've changed it from the school district and the Boys and Girls Club, because at one time those were going to be our partners. Not that the Boys and Girls Club could not, but they have other areas that they're working on now, the basement of City Hall, Whitney School, and the daycare that they have with the Family Center.
Okay.
They could come to the table on this as well, but right now we are focusing on other activities.
Okay. I just see as raising children in this community, I think one thing that we are lacking is somewhere to go when it's raining.
A daytime
with
gym
kids.
would be a great
Yeah.
amenity. Yes, it
Yes.
would. We agree wholeheartedly with you.
Okay, so is that what part of that project would be?
That's exactly what that would be. It would be
Okay.
a place that would be open in the daytime for families who don't have school-aged kids or kids who are homeschooled could come
Yeah.
there. Seniors could come there and do different things. And then when the kids got out of school, the switch would flip a little bit and be organized more for that. But there could be still spaces and events that could go on for older, younger kids, older adults, seniors, exactly. How that would go, but that's kind of how we envision that community recreation center. It used to
Okay.
be called community youth center, but it's really more than that, kind of like, 1 to 99 is kind of the ages we plan to serve.
Okay. I would love it if we could emphasize that more in this plan. I think that's something the community really needs.
Thank you.
General agreement. And if you can throw in a bowling alley, that would even be better.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right.
Chairman Martin, can I ask
Yes.
one more question? And is the park's role in that, so it would be privately funded, but then the city would service it once it was in place? Is that the way that the plan?
I think the
Set up
donor's intent is along those lines, yes. It would be privately funded and built.
Right.
And then gifted to the city, and then the city would run it through the Parks and Recreation Department.
Okay.
Correct. That's the goal.
Chairman Martin,
Mr. Mills?
while you're still trying to come up with your question, well,
I lost it a long time ago.
in 1.5, you use a term that we've kicked around in other elements over the last year or so, non-motorized, when talking about multi-use trails and pathways. How does the Parks Department define non-motorized?
Well, we would consider that something that was out without using a motor. We allow e-bikes on trails now, Class 1 e-bikes on trails that are open to bicycles, but they wouldn't, in the forest lands this is, but they wouldn't be allowed on a walker only. So non-motorized for us is without, is human-powered, basically. Someone who is using a chair that needed that for their mobility, they would trump all that, and they could use any area. That's how we just think of that.
So a mobility scooter would be considered non-motorized by the Parks Department?
If that's what a person needed to access, then yeah, for us, that would trump that, if the terrain allowed for it, of course.
Yeah,
Right.
of course.
Yeah.
How about segways? Is a Segway
Segways, if they still exist,
yeah, that's a good point.
but generally that would be a motorized transport to us.
And e-bikes would be considered motorized.
E-bikes, currently in the forest lands, the way we operate them, Class 1, which you have to pedal to move, you can use that on bicycle trails. One that is not, that has a throttle or doesn't need you to pedal, that would be we treat that as a motorcycle.
Okay, so I think it's Class 1 and 2 require human power. Class 3, if I don't have these reversed,
I think you're on the right track, yeah.
Is a throttle.
Right, right.
and
We have
one in-
speed limits, on our trails, so
Yeah.
all those things kind of work together.
Okay, so class 1 and 2 e-bikes that require pedal, they're only assist, not throttle-driven, are considered non-motorized, but subject to speed limits.
We do one only, we don't let two.
The only difference between 1 and 2 is the highest range. Class 1, and I may have these reversed, one of them assists only up to 18 miles an hour, and the other one assists up to 26 or 7 miles an hour. That's the only difference between Class 1 and Class 2. And then the third class is where it's a
Right.
motorcycle
So
underpowered.
we currently in the forest lands, Class 1 would be a bicycle to us. Class 2 and 3 would be a motorcycle to us.
Because it allows a higher speed on the top end.
Good evening, Commission. I'm Bob Vokes with the Parks Department. So we were, when we went through this, the e-bike discussion, lengthy, multi-meeting, over 100 people at a forest board meeting. Of course, this was COVID, so it was easier to have that many people. But we stayed consistent with the state policy at the time, which was Class 1 were considered bicycles by the state, 2 and 3 were considered motorized vehicles. And the speed exceeds our 15-mile-an-hour speed limit in the forest lands, which, I mean, a lot of pedal bicycles do going down hills as well. But we've stuck with that policy, and it'll be in the forest plan update when we finally get that through the forest board into council here in probably a few months.
So the 15-mile-an-hour max speed is kind of a criteria in your definition then?
That had a lot to do with it, and also it was, like so many things, a compromise, because there were people that were advocating for the e-bikes, there were also people that didn't want us to allow them at all. So that was one way we found to try to work with the accessibility advantage of the e-bike without just opening up all the bicycle trails to all three classes.
Yeah. And I may be wrong on this, but before you go final with the plan, I bought my first e-bike post-COVID, and at the time I bought it, the state law was that you were restricted to the class that would only be assisted up to 17 or 18 miles an hour. A year after I bought the bike, my bike shop told me, so indisputable source, my bike shop manager told me that the state law had changed, and all it took was a software update on my e-bike, so now it can assist above that speed limit. So it's possible the state laws changed. You might want to double check that before you go final.
No, and it's, I mean, and your question about motorized versus non-motorized travel and transportation, I mean, with all the battery technology happening now, and there's so many, it's like, is a battery-powered motorcycle, should that be under our motorcycle jurisdiction, or should that be under something else? So it's absolutely an evolving thing, and we'll do our best to stay on top of it and figure that out when we finally get it in front of council. But that's good advice. Thank you.
Yeah, my personal opinion is that speed is the way to control these things that are kind of in neither fish nor fowl, because there's a lot of misbehaving analog bike riders that are doing crazy stuff that tears up trails, injures people, but speed is kind of a common denominator. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That also brings up a point that's been made here many times about definitions. And I believe that is also applicable in the transportation element, if I'm not mistaken. So it would be good to have definitions.
Thank you.
Okay, are we on to
Goal 2.
Goal 2?
All right, so this is, as you can see, regarding shoreline access. And we've retained a lot of this. 2.4, we've Made some changes for small boats and hand-powered craft. The idea that people want to launch in Fidalgo Bay that have small boats and would love to be able to putter around in Fidalgo Bay in the summertime. From the feedback that we've received, not much has changed here. I'm happy to take any questions if you have them.
Okay, doesn't look like any questions for goal 2.
Okay. Goal 3, efficient parks program management. We, as a department of the city, similar to the library and the museum, we rely on property taxes. We don't have a utility fund. So we are used to being frugal and relying on the largesse of the community. Donations help us to build parks, maintain parks, offer programs, etc. So we are fortunate for that. So we run in a frugal manner to be able to stretch our resources and keep our programs affordable to families in the town. And many things we offer, from Wonderland Walk to other things like that, Kids Are Best Fest, are all free to the community thanks to our budget from council and to donations from the community. So we try not to duplicate that, and that's we don't want to, say, offer a gym for weightlifting, because you have a private enterprise with a gym for weightlifting and things like that. We try not to offer baseball anymore because you have Little League doing that in town. We do offer a small Pee-wee program for ages 4 to 6, kind of a learning thing for kids, and then those kids could go off and do something like the T-ball program with the Little League. So we don't offer football for the same reason that Anacortes Youth Football does that. We try to balance with the community and talk to those other entities and make sure we are focusing on things that we do well, that don't exist, that we've done well, that people rely on. Or say our summer camps at Washington Park for kids. We do that quite a bit. We added some sentences here in 3.11 regarding sustainability, focusing on community forest lands as well. You can see we added in 3.12 around the conversation. If there is a community recreation center, could there be a possible levy in the future to help sustain that? That would be up to the voters if they wanted to do that. That's a good way to see if a program has legs, if the voters want to support that. We have strong partnerships with the Samish Nation, so we added them in 3.13. We do a lot of work with them. The Thompson Trail Trestle grant that we did for feasibility study on that with the Samish Nation. We're working on a grant for Heart Lake where they would help us with the redesign of that per the Heart Lake Master Plan that we did in 2010 that was approved by council. And we do an educational sign program with ourselves, the museum, the Port of Anacortes, and the Samish Nation. So that's a collaboration we wanted to mention here. The new one is something that we have been working on with the Anacortes Police Department to find a fully commissioned park ranger to be employed in the police department dedicated to working the city parks and forest lands. We rely heavily on the police for all of our enforcement needs. We are grateful to the Anacortes Fire Department for installing the community paramedic and the contract the city has with the Family Center to give us social counselors, and that help fill that need in the parks where many people come who are poor and are sleeping there or living there or find themselves there, and that helps us to deal with that issue. We as staff members are trained in recreation and maintenance and administration, not in social work or law enforcement. So that is something that has grown out of conversations with Chief Floyd and the mayor to try to get that ranger through the police department to work in the city forest lands as a dedicated personnel. They wouldn't be enforcing things oftentimes in the middle of winter in the ranger program in Skagit County and other places. A lot of the rangers are doing maintenance work, and then they can also then, as non-commissioned officers, many of them, or limited commission officers, they can then turn around and enforce citations and things of that nature. That's the essence of what we're looking for with the police department. That is the 3 section.
Okay, Mr. Stoneman.
I think just maybe grammar police, or maybe I just haven't seen the word used like this. I think we mean approving, consider approving. says consider
Typo.
approving.
Oh, okay.
Is that,
Great.
I don't know, unless it's being used toward, yeah.
Yeah, providing probably instead of, or
providing or something,
approving
okay.
or providing, one or the
providing.
other.
And I'd also like to
We're
register
trying to
that
prove
I'm
it to provide
disappointed
it,
you
I
didn't
guess, maybe.
catch that.
I did. Right here. Any other questions on this section? Mr. Lunsford, would you go back to policy PR 3.11? Just want to look that over again because it seems like the changes also changed the intent of the goal. So the original goal, develop and implement parks and maintenance procedures that enhance the quality and durability of our park facilities. This change, develop and implement plans and procedures that enhance the safety. Oh, I guess it's not.
You could
Yeah.
put maintenance back in there. I mean, we're comfortable with whatever, if
Yeah,
we're open to that.
yeah. I
I see
guess I
your
would.
question, and so if it was confusing what we did, we could put maintenance back in.
I would put it back in, I guess.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else for goal 3? Okay, moving right along.
Community engagement. Not a lot of changes there. We added the Arts Commission, as you can see. Ship Harbor has changed a little bit since we first worked on it years ago, and we have 15% designs we're trying to go out for grants for with the state. This goal reflects that we are the port and the Samish are a partner in that project because of the cultural sensitivity of the site. So we're working with them now to try to identify funding for surveying to be done. We've done physical surveying, but surveying of cultural resource sites, so we're not putting elements of a new trail on a culturally sensitive resource. So Samish is a partner in this project with us. That's what that reflects. Social media was added because some people look at that, and that is 4.
And it doesn't look like any questions on 4.
Excellent. 5, parks, facilities, maintenance. So we removed some things and we put them in other places, trying to be more efficient. So that's essentially what has happened, is it's moved up to here. Oops, let me read it where it went. Yeah, PR3. So many of the elements have been moved up here. We were trying to deal with some redundancies we felt were here. I think that Ms. Martin's comments with the maintenance kind of help make that clear. If there's areas that we're missing, we're happy to address them with you. That's what we were trying to do. Eliminate redundancy.
So should we, I see that we've taken out a high level of maintenance for all city facilities. Is that addressed in 3 somewhere? I don't see
I'm
it.
sorry, I don't have it memorized. So you could put in words like in 3.11, you could up the game there and put in high level of maintenance in addition to your other edit.
So 3.1 is developing great facilities,
Correct?
and you're saying add maintenance to that one?
I was saying on the one, the edit that you did with me moments ago, you could do develop and implement plans and high-quality maintenance procedures that enhance the parks, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh,
So you're just taking the element of 5 and putting it back into the edit we made just moments ago.
that works.
I mean, I think you're right about putting the word maintenance back in there, but yeah, I'd maybe even beef it up a little more. It feels like we took a whole goal and just turned it into one word. I don't know. It does just feel like it got lost a little bit.
Sure, we can look at that. I understand what you're looking for.
Yeah. Okay.
So the suggestion is maybe to add,
To beef up section 3
Yeah.
to reflect some of the elements from 5.
got it,
That's what we understand. Thank you for that.
okay?
6, funding. So we are, in 6.1, we are working now, because Ms. Grage reminded me that I need to do that, on updating our impact fees to correspond with state law and to take advantage of some of the opportunities that we have successfully funded some things in our impact fees and are looking now to do that again. That will be happening this year. That deals with some of the growing population. I think the thing to talk about with the public for us is that impact fees fund facilities. City budget needs to fund the people that keep the maintenance level up. And so that's been a struggle for us, and is currently a struggle for us, that we have, we're down staff, and that will start to reflect more and more in the maintenance we're able to do. And so that we realize that the city's in a tight time, and we want to make sure that priorities are met in areas of public safety and things like that. But the city will have to keep having the conversation of, it's lovely to build great facilities and parks, but to maintain them, we have to find funds to do that, and that doesn't come from impact fees or capital. You know, it's operation and maintenance. So, you know, it's fair to say that a good portion of our operation and maintenance is just our staffing to run the programs that we provide. So that's what we're trying to address here. Yeah. I mean, again, underscoring we have a very generous community and volunteers. You know, the Rotary Club successfully funded for and helped us to build the Lookout on top of Cap Santa, where you like to take your visitors, Ms. Martin. And it's a beautiful spot. And they've also donated, I think this year, or maybe in the past year or so, half of a full-time employee just with their generous labor. That's gigantic for us to allow that to really shine and meet a standard and stay clean. We're grateful for them and the other service clubs that help us, and that's an important thing to do. But volunteers have other plans generally sometimes, and so having the staff to do it is important for us to maintain what we need to do. I don't ask my volunteers to clean restrooms or pick up horrible garbage or deal with an unruly camper. That's what staff does. So that's what's reflected here in 6.9, just the looking for opportunities and making plans with City Council to do that, not only for capital, but for maintenance and operation.
Okay, questions for goal 6?
7 is environmental stewardship.
Hang on,
Oh.
hang on.
I do like to go fast. Sorry, my apologies.
As a teacher, there's a pause always for people to think.
We love the thinking public, so it's good.
I have something on 6.6 that you want to remove. Shouldn't that stay?
Let's see if we move that. So I think that was it's moved to 6.7, update park impact fees to keep current with growth and rising cost of construction. So if you feel that that's not met in there adequately, that was, I think, the intent of shifting that there. If you have edits to that, we'd be happy to listen to those comments.
Where's Mr. McCombs when we need him?
It's curious to me that this is a policy that we list in the comprehensive plan and not, isn't this somewhere in the city ordinance that they're?
So there is impact fee ordinance, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we are doing our impact fee update, as I mentioned earlier. And then, so there's city, we follow the RCW, the Revised Code of Washington, on what we can do and not do with our impact fees. We have updated our impact fees to include not only commercial, but multifamily and single family. So
It almost seems redundant to me to even mention it in this, but.
Okay. Well, if Mr. McComb says it's okay to delete it, I guess we should definitely delete it. Anything else? All right. I think we're on to 7 now.
okay. Environmental stewardship, retaining much of that as is. This was probably Ms. Grage's helpful suggestion to make things sensible, so we did that. Yeah, that's largely unchanged.
Okay. I think that one's good. Go for 8.
8, okay. Once you told me you're a teacher, Ms. Martin, I've reverted back to my student role and I'm listening to whatever you tell me to do. Goal 8, forest lands management. We have done some work here to try to connect things. You can see directing folks to the standalone ACFL plan. Acknowledging and creating some habitat of local importance language there. Bringing in some best management practice language. I think the desire on the 8.2 was to make it more of an action. Probably Ms. Grage again helping me clear up my language in 8.6. And then this new one reflects kind of what we're doing with the Friends of the Forest and Transition Fidalgo and relying on citizen science for more help in the woods to understand questions about the changing nature of our environment, to do science and data collecting to see what is an observation and what is actually empirically provable, so that we have science guiding some of our decision making whenever we can. So that's a reflection of that. We're grateful to them for that work. And in the past, we've reached out to universities, Western and others. We still do when we can, but having some of these citizen science groups have retired professors emeritus from UW or from Western or other places that donate their time to help us follow the protocols we need to do, the work we need to collect data, say on, water quality, so we have that information, soil moisture, so we're making good decisions where we're seeing issues of die-off or not, and why that may or may not be, trying to understand that, like I say, to give us a baseline of science so we can make informed decisions. That's what that's reflecting.
Questions, comments about Goal 8?
Okay.
Hang on. It's coming, I think. Okay. I do have a question, and it's a clarification. So the goal here, or one of the goals, is to incorporate the Parks and Rec master plan into the comp plan, correct?
So what we're doing this year, correct. So we've done it different ways, and I'll hand off to Ms. Grage if it would be better for you to explain things because you do that well. So what we're doing this year is we're bringing the Parks and Recreation element into the comprehensive plan. And then the forest plan forest management, we have a similar plan for the forest lands that's separate because we have an advisory board for Parks and Recreation. We have an advisory board for the forest lands, two separate bodies appointed by mayor and council. So our goal is to get you both elements. I know Parks and Recreation, but is our goal to get you forest lands as well for this? Right. So the forest lands will not be a part of this.
That was my question.
Right.
If you put one in, why not both?
Right. I think that you're moving up to the microphone, Ms. Grage, so please. Please go.
Thank you. The Parks and Recreation element is a mandatory element under the Growth Management Act, and so that's why it is in the GMA Comprehensive Plan, and why we are migrating that standalone document into the overall comprehensive plan, so all of the required elements will live there.
Okay, so that makes sense. It's the required element, migrate it. What seems odd is that the ACFL is still a standalone document. I don't know.
It still comes before, it has in the past come to you and the city council to be adopted officially. So it's just done it separately. And that's still the plan to do. And then it then becomes part of the comp plan by some magic formula you guys do, some magic word you say?
No, the Anacortes Community Forest Lands is not a part of the comprehensive plan. Yeah. And I think it's been intended to keep them separate because there are certain requirements that apply to amending the comprehensive plan that wouldn't apply to, while the ACFL plan goes to council for approval, it has different requirements for changing that.
But we also have optional elements in the comp plan. Anyway.
True, yes.
Anyway.
Yep, I mean, it's
just
a consideration.
Yeah. Second question, on the last new policy, it seems to me that the second sentence there is more a procedure and not a goal, where it says, groups seeking to do this work as is currently done by the Friends of the ACFL and Transition Fendalgo need to gain approval of the Forest Advisory Board and the Parks and Rec Director or their designee. Nothing against that procedure, but it doesn't seem to me like it fits as a policy.
Sure, that's fine.
I think that's it. Goal 9.
Okay.
Can I ask one question about? So you have a separate document that is ACFL. Why do you include forest lands management then within the Parks and Rec?
That's a great question. So I think there is, because we are one department that manages many things. And so, there are two boards that manage different things. So we as a department, I think, bring that into our plan because we manage the forest lands. The policies and procedures of the management of the forest plans are in that other element. And that's just, I think, traditionally that's the way it has been done since 1984. Yeah, 80, 91 in there, roughly. So that I think is, as much as anything, part of this, the reason for the division.
I wonder, is there overlap between what's in goal PR8 and what is in your other document?
Yes. So there, in that document, there'll be a discussion at length about that policy.
So are these verbatim the same? Are these taken from this document and the basis of the other document? I guess I'm concerned that you end up getting crosswise where they're contradictory because you have certain things laid out in the Parks and Rec, and then you have your ACFL document that you're.
We would take what's applicable and then use that in our policy discussions in the forest lands.
Okay.
So like water quality does come up in some parks things. Trail maintenance could come up a little bit. Washington Park is different than the forest lands, for example. So there are some apples and oranges in there. Thank you. Those are good questions. Very helpful.
All right, goal 9.
Okay, open space connectivity. The first two are, well, the first one is retained. Second one was consolidated down below. And so you can see that that was reworked for consistency with state regs. These are made a little more action, 9.3 and 9.4. 9.5 was retained as it is.
Any questions on goal 9? Mr. Mills?
Thank you, Chairman Martin. In 9.2, we list a bunch of connectivity opportunities. Should we also consider, I think we're fortunate, I think we're fortunate to have US Bike Route 10 terminating basically at the ferry terminal here in Anacortes, and that continues across the country, roughly following US Route 20 all the way to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Earlier we talked about economic development and having some way to market Anacortes. As bike routes become more developed across the country, that could become an asset for us in terms of marketing through bike groups, et cetera. But also in terms of connectivity, it would give us connectivity outside of our city into the county. I've seen signs for that route over through Cedar Woolley and goes upriver from there. Elsewhere we talked about connectivity outside the city as well as stuff inside the city.
Yeah, we're
Take a
happy
look
to
at
put that in there.
including that in your inventory.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, the new goals.
That is related to the Senior Activity Center. And so these were just a first draft. As you may or may not know, so the Senior Activity Center has hired Burke Consulting, and they are going through a planning process and are bringing some of those ideas to council on Monday night. So I think that this reflects some of the initial ideas, but now that we have completed that study, we'll probably infuse this new section with some of those elements from that plan after it's presented to council. So this talks about things generally, but I think there'll be more specific items in that plan related to, like, say, transportation elements, coordinating with other groups in the city that work on senior issues that maybe don't meet specifically about senior issues, but could. So that could be faith-based, VA-centered, other organizations that would help and work together on these issues. That was a similar model dealing with homelessness. Many groups came together to deal with homelessness and have regular meetings to talk about issues that they could work together on. We work with them on that, the Family Center and others doing that. So we could work on creating that kind of group and may do that. And then I think finally on defining if the senior center continues to work within its 4 walls or tries to expand in the community to do more things outside of our 4 walls to meet more seniors and to trick those seniors who don't believe they are seniors but biologically would qualify because of their age. So
Be careful now.
well, I'm one of them. So there are many seniors who never grace our doors, never walk through, but they are super active in the community, and how can we trick them to do things with us? So that's part of that, in a loving, kind way, of course. So this is a draft of the draft. So we'll
Okay.
bring more elements in the future.
And just for Mr. Stoneman's benefit, the last one has a kind of a typo.
Okay, we'll fix that.
I think you just take out and maintain effective stewardship.
Thank you. Okay.
Good job. Any other questions for Mr. Lunsford?
Just a comment. I think
McComb?
this is, I think this is one, not the marquee, what was tourist attraction, but this is one of the things I think that makes living in Anacortes really raises quality of life, and so I think this is important. So I like what you guys are doing. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and appreciate all the help that we received from our staff, planning staff, and the community to do this. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lunsford. Thank you, Mr. Vogt. Appreciate it.
You don't have to leave.
We're just going to take a break.
We're this much fun all the time. Okay, item C, 2025 Comprehensive Plan Update, Climate Element and Environment and Conservation Element Goals and Policies, continued discussion. And as Ms. Grage is coming to the forefront here, I felt at the last meeting that there wasn't time to really look at a lot from the community, a lot of comments from the community, and I personally spent quite a bit of time looking at, there's 96 comments online right now. Of those, about half of them are from 2 members of the community, but the other half, and there are lots of valid things, the other half are from either organizations or from individuals. And one of the goals in the climate section, I know I said, I think we really need to look at carefully. So that's the reason for me. I'm not sure for you why you decided that we should go over this again, because we've gone over it for sure. So Ms. Grage.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Martin. Yeah, I don't have much else to add other than, yes, this item is on the agenda because the commission requested it to come back. And so would just be interested in hearing, the commission's comments, feedback, additional changes you'd like to see in this element before the next draft comes out, and hopefully wrap up discussion on this one tonight.
Well, one of the themes in the comments from the community had to do with the refineries. And there were numerous comments from organizations as well as individuals about why weren't the refineries included in the greenhouse gas emission, what's the word?
Inventory.
The inventory. You asked Mr. Mills today about just some information. Mr. Coleman's given us information that the real big answer is it's part of the UGA. I contacted the Department of Commerce and said, we've had all these comments from people. Why shouldn't we? It certainly, the gas emissions from the refineries certainly would impact our city, no question about that. Why would it not be included in the inventory? And as they listened, they said, the city of Anacortes has done exactly the correct thing in not including it. And the reason is because it is not within our purview to control anything about those greenhouse gas emissions. So it is not an oversight. The city has done exactly correctly according to Commerce. So that's one thing. The other theme that came through to me from, and I actually wrote a letter to the city about, there's some things here that are pretty controversial, and that was battery storage. the lithium battery storage facilities. And I did do a little bit of looking into that as well. And because one of the comments at the last meeting was something about the city of Sedro-Woolley and what they did. And did any of you look into that? You heard some stuff? So they literally, their council literally, I don't know if it was an ordinance or a position letter or something, but they took a formal vote and said they were not in favor of battery storage in the city of Sedro-Woolley. And there's a lot of information out there about the challenges with lithium battery storage places. So they are mentioned, if I can find it, they are mentioned in our plan in numerous places. Battery storage is mentioned in CE6, CE 6.4, CE 7.5, CE 8, CE 8.2, and CE 8.3. So I thought at least we should look at those and talk about what do we think about it. You know, maybe we think it's all fine and we should keep going with that, or maybe we don't. I don't know. But I thought it was worth a conversation at least.
Chairman Martin,
Mr. Mills.
my instinct is that the battery storage is a longer conversation than the March's point. So let me try to address first the March's point. My concern wasn't that the city had dropped the ball. Was more a concern of, is the ball being picked up? How do we get comfortable? I mean, our city is impacted by what goes on March's point, whether we have it in our comp plan or not. How do we get comfortable that the county is adequately covering it if they're the responsible party? I guess a specific question there, by any chance, did the Commerce Department, they affirmed that we're doing the right thing in the city, but since we're so impacted by what happens on March's point, did they have any comment about whether or not the county is covering that adequately?
Their comment was that the city certainly could give input to the county's comp plan, and I did pull up the county's comp plan and quickly look through it to see if they have some specific areas that they are addressing. And with my quick look through, I did not see anything. So your fears might be justified. I didn't find anything specific. So.
By any chance, John, do you have any insight from your workings with the county?
Specifically about what?
How the county is approaching comp planning for March's point?
The greenhouse gas emissions.
So, well, they did the greenhouse gas emissions inventory for that area. That's included in theirs. As far as, you know, have they changed what their climate policies are specific to that? I'd have to look that up. Their comprehensive plan is available. And so that's just a matter of looking at what it is. It's out for public review right now.
So it sounds like you're encouraging me and the members of the public that have communicated with us that we need to get ourselves comfortable. We need to take a look at the county publications and what they're doing to make sure that we're comfortable that it's covered somewhere. That'd be a good way to approach it.
Yeah, and you know, we'll look at it too, since it's come up as a topic of interest. But.
Their policy that's online is pretty easy to scan quickly because it separates, these are resilience goals and these are greenhouse gas goals. There's a lot of resilience goals, hardly any greenhouse gas goals, so, you know, but I just did a quick look through.
Well, based on this conversation, I intend to kick the can a little bit myself online, as well as watch their calendar for when they have public hearings. And for anyone who is online listening tonight or who has sent in comments to us, I hope that they realize that, or understand what has been shared here by Chairman Martin in terms of the actions that we're taking at the city level, and would encourage those who have concerns, as I apparently do, that the county is adequately covering it. The avenue to approach that is to contact the county, or use the county website as a starting point, and if that leads to contacting county officials, then we would need to do that. So, thank you.
Good summary. Are there any other items other than, I'm thinking we just go through these policies that have to do with the battery storage, and maybe, I'm trying to think which section. There's one section that I had a lot of questions about, the whole section. The section that PSE helped to write, wherever that is. You probably know, Ms. Grage.
Is it CE6
Might be.
and associated policies? I see a lot of PSEs in there.
Yeah. What if we just go kind of quickly through CE6? Let me find that. So on this one, the consultant, I'm assuming it's the consultant, they've changed the title, which is probably okay, and they struck out, the blue is strike out, right? It's not really struck out here. Oh, yeah. They struck out including generation, transmission, and storage. But I'm wondering if we need to take out generation and transmission.
So are you saying just take out storage?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the blue highlight was indicating the changes that were suggested by the Planning Commission after the initial review of these goals and policies. And so that's why some of them are highlighted with the blue. Those are subsequent changes.
Is there a reason, commissioners, to take out all of that, including generation, transmission, and storage? Or why don't you just, what do you think about lithium battery storage? What do you think about it?
No, I thought it was a good point brought up. The idea of that does not appeal to me, as you know, without maybe being a full energy guru type of thing. But if it's possible to avoid those storage facilities, I thought the concerns raised were valid. I don't think in this one, if I remember right, in this part, I think we just took that out just because it was like, you don't have to say including. It was just increasing, energy infrastructure resilience, and you didn't have to have examples. I think that's all that we were doing there. But there are some other places later where it specifically calls out developing battery storage systems.
But if we don't call out generation and transmission, then we are by omission including storage.
Oh.
I
Go ahead, Mr. Mills.
I agree with your concern that by striking them all, it's all under the same umbrella and it doesn't specifically address storage. But I'm also torn, to use an old acronym, NIMBY. If battery storage is a part of going all electric and getting away from fossil fuels, if the battery storage has to be somewhere. And so if we go throughout the comp plan talking about cutting greenhouse emissions and cutting out gas stoves and, you know, doing everything to go all electric, but then at the same time we say, well, we're against battery storage as part of the electrical grid. How do we reconcile that? And so pick a side, I can argue the other side. I'm troubled by it, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Mr. McCombs?
Commissioner Martin, you know, nobody wants a lithium battery to catch on fire in their backyard, right? Nobody wants that. But like Mr. Moore said, if we're going all electric, you have to build a system that will allow you to go electric and provide the electricity when you need it and make it affordable. And so I think I'm not an expert on this, but I think there is probably some requirement to have that to build a redundant and resilient electric infrastructure. I think hopefully there's maybe some lessons learned that we can take from how they did it in other communities, but my guess is this is probably a necessary evil. Like, people want to drive a car, we have to refine fuel somewhere, and that's what happens at March's Point, right? If you want to have electrical power all the time and heat your home with electricity, we're probably going to need to be able to store electricity as well. You want electric ferries, we probably have to store electricity. So I think us putting a moratorium on batteries is probably not realistic, but maybe we need to pursue safe and low impact ways to do it.
And some of these policies are for smaller storage facilities. What do you think, Mr. Courier?
I do think it's a really complex issue, and you can't just ignore one side and not consider the other. But I do think that I don't feel like I'm an expert on proper storage, and from everything I've read, there's a lot of complexity to it, but I do think that it has to be carefully considered, but can't be ruled out.
So, from what I know, the issue, I guess, the issue is in the ifs that Mr. McCombs said. If we're going to have all electric everything, then there needs to be some way to store that energy. The question is in the if. If that is going to be the case, is it going to be the case? Do we lose our agency to choose, or do we not?
I guess maybe Libby, do you know, I mean, does the storage facility, does it have to be in the city? I mean, I feel like that's maybe what we're talking about, is can it just be, you know, I don't know where, but
Yeah.
Does it have to be within the city limits? And that's what we're talking about here, I think.
Well, I think that, you know, maybe there are appropriate areas within city limits or the urban growth area for larger facilities, or maybe there aren't. But I think that sort of, you know, going into depth on what makes sense for Anacortes could be done through, you know, developing development regulations for these types of facilities. So it could get very specific, you know, based on the scale and location. And but I think that PSE, Puget Sound Energy's comments and kind of how the genesis of these proposed goals and policies evolved was, you know, to kind of keep it open so that if it did make sense somewhere in the city, that it could still happen. But that hasn't, that wouldn't be defined necessarily until development regulations were created. And these policies could, guide the development of those development regulations.
Mr. Coleman, could you weigh in?
So I'm looking at the county's comprehensive plan, proposed comprehensive plan update, and so I've been doing some searches here for battery and storage. They seem to be using just the term storage. And the one policy that I've come across, excuse me, I gotta toggle through a bunch of stuff to get back to where I was, but just doing a quick review here. Policy number, again, I apologize as I toggle through trying to get back to where I saw this. Groundwater, there's a lot of storage in here. I'm getting close, I promise you. Okay. Policy 12.8, 12, sorry, I don't have my glasses on. 12B 1.4, identify areas in the county that are appropriate for siting renewable energy as generation and storage facilities that prioritize protection of natural resource lands. So that's under goal 12B, which is to enhance the resilience and reliability of energy infrastructure, promote and support building designs that better withstand climate change impacts. So what they appear to be doing here is trying to balance the need for energy efficiency related to, more electrification for heat pumps in homes and cars, et cetera, with the need for these storage facilities. So this is pretty neutral language. It's to identify areas in the county that are appropriate for siting renewable energy generation and storage facilities. So they've lumped renewable energy generation and storage into the same one, which I kind of see them as related but separate entirely, especially with knowing the technology is to, store the storage of the energy is no longer at the point of production. Now we're moving to these battery storage systems that are in parallel with the transmission system. So I see them as a little different. So I might separate those goals and policies for those two items. But they do suggest that you identify and thus carefully, as Commissioner Courier said, carefully examine the appropriate area for it is the way the county is going.
And so maybe to that point, I think when I look at the storage notes in ours, maybe just adding a caveat or two in there that talks about safety and as needed instead of just as feasible, and even if you look at just the overall CE8, I mean, it almost sounds like we're saying, send us your batteries for storage, not that it's because we need them for renewable energy. It almost sounds like it says, promote battery storage type of thing. And so I think maybe we can alleviate some of the concerns with those, some type of caveats or just different way to put it, that we're not saying if you have to have batteries for storage, then okay, but let's make sure we do it right. If we don't have to have them, then we don't want them, or something, not those exact words, but something like that.
I think the consultant at the last meeting made some different differentiation between small, like as in city use storage facilities versus large, such as, in my mind, an electric ferry two different, she makes those distinctions. Maybe that's the way we go as we look through these. I don't know.
I think I mentioned on the record last time is, we're going to need to address the scale and appropriate places in the code. But we can do that in the code. We had some concerns about completely saying we want no battery storage in the city or urban growth area at all. But I think we need to be very purposeful about where it is allowed. And that not necessarily in the comp plan isn't where you would do that.
Except that the comp plan is more of our vision for the city, and the code can change pretty easily. My letter that I wrote that I was concerned about is, I know this is a touchy issue, and I know there are people diametrically on both ends of this spectrum, and I don't think the majority of Anacortes residents are in either end. I think most of us are somewhere in the middle. So how do we address this to really reflect our citizens? So where do we go?
I think there's got to be responsible, if we are going to be zero greenhouse emissions, greenhouse gas emissions, I think we have, and we're looking to electrify everything. There has to be, we have to have a resilient and redundant power grid to support that. And so maybe an overarching goal in order to get to a zero greenhouse gas emissions is the minimum required to meet that. And my guess is there's probably some minimum amount of battery storage required. Do I know that for sure? No. But my guess is you probably do need that. And doing that in a responsible way to meet the minimum requirements is probably a responsible and safe way to meet those minimum requirements so that we can meet that. The goal is zero greenhouse gas emissions. So I don't think we're going to get there without that. So I think some sort of verbiage that would capture that, if we can avoid, and I don't think anybody wants an industrial battery storage in their backyard, right? So, and for the record, the Cedro Woolley is actually not in Cedro Woolley, it's in the county. So, if the county, if someone proposes something that's on Fidalgo Island, but it's out of the county, or it's not in the city limits, we may not have any control over that anyway, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, there is another one that is going in I guess, is it Mount Vernon or Burlington? Kind of behind the transfer station. That's a 22-acre one that's going in, is approved, is going. Pardon? Yeah, kind of by the airport. Mm-hmm. Well, should we just get down to the nitty-gritty of it and see?
Yeah, going back to my original comments that started the discussion, is that based upon what we think we know today, battery storage is going to be necessary as part of an all-electric environment, which is going to be necessary to get to the greenhouse gas emission objectives that we have. So pragmatically, it's based on what we know now, it's going to be part of that resiliency and that network. And so what we need to do is craft something that manages that as best we can. I don't think we can outlaw it. I don't think we can encourage it. I think we just need to manage it. Because based on what I think I know today, they're going to be necessary. The question is where, how. Is it a distributed network of small battery storage facilities? Is it a giant battery farm? That's to be managed. So.
All right, well, let's look at CE6.
So I've been here while I've been in the county comp plan. I came here originally to address the first question that we were talking about, which was the Marches Point and the refineries.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I was able to address battery storage too. So we seem to have punted on that one. So at some point, can we come back to it and I can tell you what I've quickly found in
But
here?
let's just do that now, because we really haven't started anything.
Okay, so to revisit, you were talking about, you weren't sure how to proceed without having this information. So I wanted to have this on hand, so give us a chance to possibly wrap up our conversation on this topic tonight. So under policy 9A 5.5 of the county comprehensive plan, it says, encourage commercial and industrial facilities to support the transition to low carbon systems, including incorporation of cogeneration systems wherever possible in parallel, support the transition of high carbon emitting sectors, including oil refining and industrial gas manufacturing, to low carbon processes or industries. So, I mean, they're supporting the transition at March's Point but they're not saying stop, putting any sidebars on it where, we've seen comments requesting, no longer allowing expansion of refining processes. This walks the line in between saying continue to allow it. It doesn't say anything about not allowing it, but it does say encourage commercial industrial facilities to support the transition to low carbon systems. That is one way to go about this policy, is to address it. And
Okay, so thank you for finding that. So the refineries are addressed in the county plan 9A 5.5.
that is, that's just one policy under the goal of energy conservation. Doing word searches for things like refinery, March's Point. This one's refining, so you won't find it if you're looking refinery. So you need to look up refining. Other word, I'm not, what other words could I be searching for in the meantime that's to help further this conversation? I did battery, didn't come up with much. Under storage, that's where I found that one that I read to you previously.
Which,
I searched for BESS. I did not come up with anything, but I did come up with storage under energy storage.
and that one is 12B 1.4, is that correct? I think.
Oh.
That sounded like language maybe we should put in our plan.
12B 1.4.
Would you mind reading that one again?
Identify areas in the county that are appropriate for siting renewable energy generation and storage facilities that prioritize protection of natural resource lands. So this is under goal 12B, which is to enhance resilience and reliability of infrastructure, of energy infrastructure. Goal 12 overall is resiliency goals and policies. So it's under the resiliency.
That one might be one
That's
that
in
we
the
can
climate
wordsmith. Yeah, you like it?
You like it as is?
Well, I think again, if you go, I don't know if you want to go ahead and go to CE8, which is the overall goal, if you put some version of that in there along with the storage, I think that would alleviate a lot of the concerns. Libby, can you call up the CE8 on your thing? Just because I think.
Oh, I'm sorry, I
everybody's,
thought I had.
I'm looking at the clean version, so I don't know, if maybe that's different from the, no, that's, yeah,
we go.
that's it, yep.
Are you saying maybe take that main goal and incorporate some of the language from the county?
Yeah, because that's the one where I was concerned that it almost sounds like we're supporting battery storage,
Yeah.
you know, type of thing, like we're saying, bring all your batteries here. So maybe that's the place where, again, putting that language in would, and then by having it in the overall goal, maybe that kind of covers other places where it's said also.
I like it.
It does make it sound like you're promoting battery storage, which will
I'm sorry,
grow.
you're saying CE, is it EC?
CE8 in our comp plan? It's on the,
Oh, okay.
Libby's got it up now, if you want.
Right here.
I'm sorry, I couldn't, I don't know
So-
if we could hear what you were saying, Commissioner
So
Courier.
what he's saying is take that main goal, CE8, and rework it so that it sounds a little bit more like the county 12B 1.4.
So would it be adding to, you're saying add to the goal rather than add to the policy 8.3, which talks about the small scale?
I mean, you can add it there too. I guess I thought by putting it in the overall goal, maybe you could avoid having to repeat yourself in a number of the different elements. Because again, I just rereading that overall goal, I keep saying this, I'm sorry, but I don't like it, where I feel like it literally says, the way it says and battery storage, as if that's like a goal to have battery storage, not that our goal is the energy resilience, that, oh, by the way, may have to do some battery storage type of thing, so.
We could say something like support overall energy resilience by promoting local solar energy production, as well as planning for small-scale renewable energy, and incorporate some of the appropriately scale
I think
and
so.
site location for battery storage.
I
It
think
would,
that
it would
work.
sound much better than that.
Sure, no, yeah, no.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I get you, but I think you understand
Yeah.
at least what I'm thinking, if everybody else likes that.
There's actually some language in one of the comments, one of the public comments about battery storage facilities to basically include or create regulatory code language to address battery storage to ensure proper siting and design. Yeah.
Well, I think you're hearing our, not just concerns, but just our sense, I think, of trying to walk a fine line here. And I don't think we're quite walking the fine line yet. But you know, between the language, the Skagit County language that's more neutral sounding, and I agree with Mr. Stoneman about trying to fix that CE8 language a little bit. And I think we may still need to look at these other areas where battery storage is addressed, but maybe that fixes it, I don't know.
Well, look, do you mind continuing on? And I mean, our goal would be to finish the conversation tonight. You're giving us very clear recommendations of language that I think we can incorporate, and you know, this is not going to be the last time that you get to see this.
Right.
We're going to package it all together and bring it back. What we're hoping to do is just not have to bring this back as an agenda item again at the next meeting, because we'll be having 2 public hearings that night, and, but we will, but I just want to gauge your, like, if you trust us to get enough to address it, even though we won't have the specific language done tonight, will you be comfortable with giving us clear enough direction tonight so we can, when it does come back to you in a couple of months with the full draft, will that be satisfactory? Presuming we don't come up with a bunch of other problems that we just need to continue to work on, but like, we're just hoping that we can, move forward tonight.
No, I appreciate that, and I think, I don't know, I'm comfortable. Go ahead.
Can I ask a clarifying question, kind of in the vein of what John Coleman's talking about? So like C 8.3, I think, encourage local microgrid solar battery, and then battery storage facilities. I don't understand the language here. Are we talking about like small scale battery storage, or are we talking about like larger scale industrial? Are we talking like a residential battery storage?
I think this
Or
doesn't,
all?
I think the way it's written, it doesn't specify. And so I think, the direction you're giving is for us to write this in a way that we will consider it and find a way to regulate it in a way that makes sense for the city. And the language that you wrote, that you read from somebody's comments, you liked that, so maybe we can move that into it, and while also trying to use the language similar to what the county said, identify areas that are appropriate for siting renewable energy.
Maybe that rather than encouraging it.
Yeah, I understand that, yeah, in CE8, continue to leave the language in that encourages, supports overall energy resilience by promoting local solar production, as well as carefully consider locations for small-scale energy, renewable energy, and battery storage.
There's several of these items also that, if you're looking at like 8.2, that it's saying it's going to happen at the city. The city is going to be a leader in things like battery storage.
(8.2) says the city is going to be a leader.
Mm-hmm. Install distributed renewable energy generation and battery infrastructure at city facilities to store renewable electricity, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I think we could probably, instead of saying we're going to do that, say explore opportunities in a manner that's appropriate.
I think what Makers had in mind is that the city would be a leader in all of the areas of energy conservation, and I think that is what's shown. I don't know that that's our population.
In 8.2, it sounds different to me that they're looking to generate renewable energy collected at the city site, as opposed to a battery storage in that line, but I may be reading that wrong.
Yeah, battery infrastructure is not clear. Does that mean battery charging infrastructure or battery storage infrastructure?
Yeah, that sounds like collection of electricity generated on site on that specific CE 8.2.
Well, what is a battery infrastructure?
I'm not clear. It just seems different than the other ones that specifically address storage, but it's a little ambiguous.
Well, it does go on to say to store renewable electricity generated on site, so I guess that's pretty clear.
I thought what you said, John, was good, though, about adding to this one also, about just what you said about the words about making it appropriate, making the right regulations and all that. I think basically anywhere it says store or storage, throwing something like that in there would help.
Got it.
Anything else from the commissioners? I know I'm feeling a little more settled. I think that we've had a good conversation and we needed to have that conversation.
I do have a question, Chairman Martin.
Yep.
I think we kind of started the discussion with the wording of CE6.
Did.
The conversation has come around to trying to incorporate language from the county references that John found. Will that be used to address CE6 as well, or do we need to do some word? CE-6, the goal itself, yeah. We started talking about it from the standpoint of the word storage, unless we're going to use the county language to try to modify this. I see a couple of ways that we can go. We can start, we just accept the first part of it as written, promote energy resilience, coordinate with regional utilities and jurisdictions to increase energy infrastructure resilience, period. Or you could continue on skipping the part about the examples and say, increasing energy infrastructure resilience while accommodating renewable energy opportunities, increase demand, and to withstand and recover from extreme weather, et cetera.
So in my copy, that's already stricken, the including generation, transmission, and storage.
I'm sorry, say again?
In my copy, the words include generation, transmission, and storage is already removed.
Oh, okay, I see on the screen, yeah.
So we already did, we thought, we read your mind and we did it already.
Okay.
Or more likely, you made the same comment last time and we struck it out.
Probably, because I'm going
We
from my
listened.
earlier notes. And I missed last time.
So is it okay the way it is then, in your mind,
With me it is.
as revised?
It's fine with me.
Okay, I'm just going to go over, here are the places to look at again. CE6, CE6.4, CE7.5, CE8, CE8.2, CE8.3. Do your magic.
I didn't quite get that. Can you say it faster?
I could.
6, 6.4, 7.5, 8.2, and 8.3. Did I miss one in there?
And 8.0.
And 8.
8.0. Thank you.
Yeah, just review those.
Thank you.
Sure. I know it's getting late. And I'm going to put the battery storage to bed unless, yes, battery storage is put to bed. A couple of other questions, things that I think need to be looked at. CE 6.1. The beginning of it seems fine. The A, B, and C seem like the action plan rather than a goal. So if it were me, I would just get rid of the action plan. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the goal. Because the goal up at top is to coordinate regularly with Puget Sound Energy to share information, blah, blah, blah. And A, B, and C is just the how-to.
Which can, letter A, the city staff, which reads a little bit strange, but city staff to highlight for developers, property owners, and others proposing projects the importance of early engagement. That was in our discussion with Puget Sound Energy, that was kind of one of the key takeaways, as being an important way that PSC can plan and the way that we share information when new development projects come in. And so I think it was just thought that that would be helpful to clearly explain what that meant.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with it, but if you read the top, coordinate regularly with Puget Sound Energy to share information, monitor local grid capacity, and increase awareness of upcoming projects and emerging opportunities.
Yeah,
It seems like that's
Covers
covered.
it.
Yeah.
I agree.
And 6.2, the next one. Can you roll that up, please? This one also, the last sentence is fine. Work closely with utilities and local fire departments to lessen the risk and impact of wildfires. That's the what. The other part is the how, and it seems like it's kind of too mixed up. Whereas just the last sentence would be perfectly fine. What do you commissioners think?
So background on this one looks like it was a new proposed policy from PSC. It was reviewed by the climate team, and this is what the climate team recommendation was to clarify and make the PSC one more appropriate to put in our comp plan. So that's the background.
It seems to me like if it just had the last sentence, you'd have all that you need. Might disagree.
No,
Whatever.
I
I'm
could
fine
go
with that,
either
too.
way. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Luke?
Simple seems best here, but unless there's a reason that we would want all the specificity on that.
You don't care. Okay, it's getting late. Okay.
So are we leaving that as is?
Nope, we've got a majority that don't care at all, and a couple that are saying just use the last sentence.
So we're just using last sentence?
Yes,
That's fine.
they're fine, right?
Yeah, that gets the job done.
Okay. Go to 7.1. This one is just a question. Offer incentives to promote new buildings to include energy efficiency and renewable energy features beyond minimum code requirements. Sounds like a fine idea. Are there unintended, or could there be unintended consequences to this, to offering these incentives? Like higher costs for people?
This goes back to our discussion about weasel words versus more specificity. This seems to be committing that the city will offer incentives. And do we really want to do that?
Maybe we do. It might be just fine. We want to build energy efficient homes for people or buildings, and we would love it if they would use renewable energy features in their homes. In the back of my mind, there may be an unintended consequence that it gives the builders a right to increase the cost of housing, which is exactly the opposite of what we're actually trying to do. I don't know. maybe it's nothing, but it seems like there might be some unintended consequences here. Can just leave it. It's,
I think we're agreeing, but for different reasons.
oh. I think that's enough. I have all other questions, but I think that's probably enough, and you're probably tired.
Chairman Martin, can I ask two questions?
You may.
Just for clarification on, is CE8, and it gives the example of geothermal as a small-scale renewable energy. Is there any geothermal in Anacortes or the urban growth area?
Yes.
There is?
Well,
I might be making this up. I don't. I think that potentially I'll verify this, but I think the Sun Systems building or one of those buildings on the waterfront may be using geothermal energy. So I do think that it is happening on a small scale for some buildings, but I don't know if I'm thinking of the right building or not.
Would that be as a heat source or as a cooling source using water
I don't
from
know.
the bay?
I'd have to look into that.
Here's a question. If you have heating under your floors that is water, isn't that geothermal?
If it's coming out of the earth, if the hot water is coming out of the earth, that would make it geothermal.
Yeah, geothermal is.
It would just be thermal?
Otherwise, it's just thermal.
Geothermal is specific to collecting hot gases or water coming from underground and using that to heat your building or your water.
I'm not familiar with any within Anacortes, and if there is none, I would recommend we remove that as an example, just because it makes us look like we don't know anything. So for credibility, I would say we remove geothermal. And then 10.5, I have a question about, it talks about redundant or existing transit resources like school bus transit routes. I don't understand, what are they proposing with school buses?
I'm sorry, which one were you looking at?
10.5, promote use of existing transit resources, and then i.e. school bus transit routes to reduce car trips to public destinations in the community.
To me, I just read that as encourage use of public transit system. Am I missing something?
Is it, if you have the option to drive your kid to school and there's a bus that's available, it'd be better to send them on the bus? Is that what's implied?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that was a climate team discussion, and I think that was the gist of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh. It may have something to do with encouraging families to use the school buses that are available instead of driving
Yes.
their own separate trips.
It would also behoove the school district to take a look at the redundancy in their transportation plans. That's pretty obvious, but that's not our business.
Is that, Commissioner Martin, or Chairman Martin, I didn't want to demote you. I think the school district was represented on the climate team.
Yes.
Yeah. The challenge with the school district is they get paid based on the number of miles. And so to have 2 or 3 buses that go on the same route, follow the same route, going to then different schools, they do get reimbursed for that, which is interesting. But when you talk about greenhouse gas emissions, it would be worthwhile looking at the redundancy in their plans. Not our business, sorry.
You're a victim of your background.
I am, yes. Any other questions here for this section?
Chairman Martin, I'd like to go back to the geothermal. I think we left it with we were going to delete it. In my mind, it depends on how you define geothermal. If you're talking about hot water coming up out of the earth to heat only as being geothermal. However, if you're talking about drilling, I watch a lot of This Old House. And they're on the cutting edge of lots of things, and one of them is drilling down and putting in heat wells or cooling wells. You get down below, 30, 40, 50 feet down, the Earth's temperature can be used for both heating and cooling by circulating up through. So if you're defining man-made geothermal by drilling down into the Earth and moving energy back and forth from the Earth, if that's geothermal, then I think we should leave it in. If we're talking about hippie bathtubs where the geothermal water comes up from volcanic activity, then it needs to be out. But if we're talking about the future of getting energy transfer by drilling into the Earth, it's valid to be there.
Are you talking about things like root cellars, old-fashioned root cellars?
But deeper, yeah.
But deeper, okay. Well,
Well, we will look into that in
Do you
more
have, Sandy, you
depth.
want to check in?
is that okay? Okay.
I'm looking at geothermal, and like the definition regarding to or produced by internal heat of the earth. See Iceland.
Actually, CBC or Alberta. We have both.
It says 70% of Iceland's energy is met from geothermal sources.
Okay.
I suspect the intent of that language in there was referring to water being heated and brought to the surface like in Iceland. But we'd beware that geothermal is defined by drilling down into the earth to do energy transfers up, back and forth is probably going to be in our future.
Maybe we do some research and clarify and try to include that type, heating and cooling needs using, the Earth's temperature. We'll come up with the proper technology terms, and we'll see if we can throw something in there. But in the meantime, it sounds like we're leaving geothermal as is.
It uses it as an example so it's not like, it's not critical in the text anywhere. I just wasn't sure. But as I'm looking, as I'm doing my Google search on geothermal systems, it looks like this is not related to volcanic activity. It's actually, there are heat pumps that run on geothermal in the ground. So maybe it's worthwhile leaving there.
Okay,
Sounds
so
good.
that's a yes. Leave it.
We'll leave it and do a little poking around.
All right. Folks, we still have one other thing to get through here tonight.
Planning Department update.
We have two more things to get through tonight. Don't we have environment and conservation element, goals and policies?
Well, we included it just because it went along with the climate element at the last meeting. So if you have specific items you want to talk about, then yes, we can do that. But that's the only reason we included it.
So before
this
we move
packet.
on, is the Planning Commission comfortable after this discussion with the Planning Department making these revisions, taking your requested revisions and synthesizing those into our future updates. So like when we do bring this back to the Planning Commission as part of the full document, are we good there, or do we need to bring this back again next Planning Commission meeting?
What are we doing a public hearing on next meeting? The parks?
And
Economic development and Parks and Rec.
Okay. I guess I'm comfortable with you doing it. I think you've heard us, and I don't know, in agreement.
yeah, you gave pretty specific actionable items, and so we know where to look. We have very good guidance, thank you. And you'll get to see it again.
Okay, I don't have anything in, believe it or not.
Yeah, I didn't remember that there was anything
No.
specific that came. We just wanted to give you the opportunity.
Anybody else? Going once? I know it's getting late. Okay. Number 7, Planning Department update.
Well, first, thank you, Libby, for guiding us through that. That was a lot of work. And compliments to the Planning Commission tonight. Like, this has been a really engaged conversation from all three, through all three of the topics that we covered. Thank you very much for your hard work on this, and we certainly have a lot to work on. So tonight's Planning Department update. As we just talked about, we're going to be bringing back the economic development and the Parks and Rec elements, goals and policies of those elements, the next Planning Commission meeting for a public hearing. And then hopefully we can put a bow on those and send everything to all of our stuff to consultants so that they can make all of the needed amendments to all of the goals and policies and synthesize those into the updates to the actual comprehensive plan background information. And then the sooner we get that all done, the sooner we can get a full draft of our comprehensive plan to the Planning Commission. So we're shooting for late June, early July. And we plan to have a good public comment period on that, open for at least a month once that draft is available. And timing, we got to work out timing, like just when it's available. And so I don't know specific dates. And also, at the next Planning Commission meeting, we know that we're going to have an open record public hearing for a shoreline substantial development permit. It is of size that it is beyond your decision making. So it's the type that you make a recommendation to the city council. So that's at the next meeting. And I already mentioned the economic development strategic plan earlier tonight, so I'll spare you that. And for those of you that have been watching our city council meetings, you may have noticed that the city council approved a contract for a environmental consulting company to review our best available science portion of, so what that means are we have to review our critical areas ordinance and make updates as necessary. Those updates are going to be necessary if the current best available science necessitates changes. So the first step of this process is to have somebody review the current best available science and compare it with our critical areas ordinance and the science that backed that up, and see if there's any gaps or any new information. And if so, then we'll need to possibly make changes to the critical areas ordinance. Now, we just passed our critical areas ordinance a couple of years ago, so As far as we know, there's been no shock waves that we've heard about, but there certainly could be changes. So I'm not trying to predict the future, but we'll see what the best available science review says, and act appropriately. And that is all I have for our planning department update.
Thank you very much. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, this meeting is adjourned and it's 8:55. You got 5 whole minutes to enjoy yourself.
Okay, we can go longer, we just can't start anything new after 9 o'clock without approving.